Three voices said it this week. Three completely different people from three completely different directions. And every single one of them pointed toward the same place. The first voice has 300 million followers. She said one word, and that word traveled farther than any press conference, any FBI release, and any tip line call has traveled in the 100-plus days since Nancy Guthrie disappeared. The second voice is a former FBI agent with 22 years inside the Bureau. She said something this week that nobody in this case has said out loud before. She said the man everyone has been focused on, the man on that porch, is not the key suspect. She called him a mope. The third voice is a retired detective who cracked one of Tucson's most terrifying serial crime cases. He spoke yesterday, May 22, 2026. And what he said about where the suspect's name actually is right now should make every person following this case stop and think. Three voices, three new developments. And by the end of this video, the picture of who took Nancy Guthrie looks very different than it did 7 days ago. This is Brian Updates. And if you have been following this case, subscribe right now and hit the bell because what I am about to walk through took days of research across FBI releases, verified reporting from NBC, Fox News, CNN, News Nation, and Men's Journal, and direct statements from named law enforcement experts. Let us start with the word that reached 300 million people. May 13, 2026, Khloe Kardashian sat down on her podcast. It is called Khloe in Wonderland. Her guest was Ashley Flowers, the host of Crime Junkie, one of the most listened to true crime podcasts in America. They started talking about the Nancy Guthrie case. And here is exactly what Khloe said, word for word, verified. She said, Nancy Guthrie? I mean, is that not heartbreaking? I am just like, this is 2026. There is nothing like we do not know anything that is mind-blowing. Then she said this. I do not know if I know enough about this case, but all the things I was reading about the brother-in-law and that kind of stuff, I am like, oof. And then she said this, the ransom notes going to all the media outlets first. How weird was that? I do not believe that there is not one piece of information they are not telling us. Now, the title of this video says Kardashian directly exposes the suspect with a question mark. Let me be honest with you about what that means, because I am not going to do what other channels do and pretend she named someone. She did not say Tommaso Cioni. She said brother-in-law. She said oof. She said they are not telling us. But here is the thing about that. She said it to 300 million people. 300 million. That is not the true crime community talking to itself. That is a number bigger than the entire population of the United States. People who have never heard of Nancy Guthrie. People who do not watch investigative journalism. People who follow Khloe for fashion and family content and had zero idea who Savannah Guthrie's mother was until that word oof came out of that podcast speaker and landed in their ears. And now they know. And now they are asking questions. And now the pressure on this investigation is different than it was on May 12th. That is what Celebrity Reach does. It does not solve cases. Evidence solves cases. But Celebrity Reach keeps the tips coming. It keeps the witnesses thinking. It keeps the person sitting on information uncomfortable enough to consider picking up the phone. But here is what I need you to understand. Khloe Kardashian was not the first voice to point in that direction. Not even close. Go back to February 3rd, 2026. Nancy had been missing for 2 days. Ashley Banfield, a veteran journalist and former News Nation anchor, sat down on her own podcast called Drop Dead Ad Serious, saying the sheriff running this case may have allowed a personal vendetta against the FBI to interfere with the search for an abducted 84-year-old woman. And then on May 5, 2026, FBI Director Kash Patel himself stated publicly that the Pima County Sheriff's Department did not work well with the FBI during the early days of the investigation. The FBI director confirming what Hines had accused Sheriff Nanos pushed back. His department issued a statement saying they have worked with the FBI since the beginning, but the damage was done. And the question that every person watching this video should be asking is this. How many hours were lost? How much evidence was compromised? How many leads went cold because two agencies were not communicating the way they should have been during the most critical window of this investigation, the first 48 hours? Nobody has answered that question, and the family of Nancy Guthrie deserves an answer. As of May 2026, Sheriff Nanos confirmed that the FBI now leads all communication with the Guthrie family, including Savannah. He is no longer in direct contact with them. That is a significant shift, and it tells you something about where the balance of power in this investigation has moved. Now, there is one more voice I want you to hear because it carries a kind of authority that no YouTube channel and no internet commenter can match. Ed Smart is the father of Elizabeth Smart. His daughter was kidnapped from her Salt Lake City home in 2002 and held captive for 9 months before being found alive. Ed Mart knows what it feels like to have your child taken. He knows what these investigations look like from the inside. He knows what the public attention does to a family. In April 2026, Smart sat down with News Nation's Jesse Weber. He was asked about the Guthrie case, and he chose his words with visible care. He said, "I think that it is really important to one not go into conspiracy theories. I do not think there is much value in that. Of course, the Guthrie have been looked at." And then he said this: "The family has supposedly been cleared." Supposedly, that is the word Ed Smart used. Not definitely, not conclusively, supposedly. It is the word you use when you are respecting an official position while leaving the door deliberately open to the possibility that the official position is not the final word. Edmart was not accusing anyone. He was being precise, and precision in a case like this says more than certainty ever could. He went on to say that the public and the media need to keep NY's face out there, that new information needs to keep coming, that sometimes law enforcement does not disclose what they have, and that can be problematic. Those are the words of a man who has lived through this nightmare and who understands that public attention is sometimes the only thing keeping a case alive. So, let me bring this to where the investigation actually stands right now, because underneath all the noise, the tweets, the accusations, the YouTube live streams from NY's front yard, there is real forensic work happening in real laboratories with real scientists. The DNA recovered from the blood evidence on NY's front porch contains both her blood and an unknown individual's profile. That unknown DNA was run through CODIS, the national DNA database used by every law enforcement agency in the country. It came back with no match. No match means the person who left biological material at that scene has never been in the criminal justice system. No prior arrests, no prior convictions, no history of violence that put them in any database anywhere. Think about what that eliminates. It eliminates career criminals. It eliminates repeat offenders. It eliminates anyone with a prior record. The DNA profile belongs to someone living what appears from the outside to be a completely ordinary life. A hair sample recovered from inside NY's home was sent first to a private lab in Florida, then to the FBI lab at Quantico, Virginia. As of May 2026, that evidence is believed to be undergoing genetic genealogy analysis, the same technology that identified the Golden State Killer after more than 40 years, the technology that convicted Rex Human, the Long Island serial killer. Genetic genealogy works by comparing crime scene DNA against commercial ancestry databases and building a family tree backward until it identifies a living person. It is slow. It is painstaking, but it has never permanently failed when applied to quality biological evidence. If that hair sample contains a root which determines whether full genomic profiling is possible, then whoever left it inside NY's home is already in a database they do not know about, and the clock is ticking on their anonymity. Sheriff Nano, speaking in May 2026, said directly that investigators believe they are getting closer to identifying the unknown DNA contributor. He said an arrest will be made at some point, and he described the process that would follow a DNA match. Once they have a name, they go backward. What does this person drive? Were vehicles matching that description seen in the area? Who do they know? Where were they that night? The DNA does not care about YouTube theories. It does not care about tweets. It does not care about family trees drawn on whiteboards by people who have never processed a crime scene. It will either match a name or it will not. That is the approach of someone who understood law enforcement's digital surveillance capabilities and planned around them. So now the picture has shifted. Porsche guy may be a mope. There may be a boss somewhere who has never been on camera. And former FBI agent Coffin Daffa also raised one more possibility that is almost too chilling to say out loud. Other commentators following this case alongside Coffin Daffa have raised the theory that Porsche guy himself may no longer be alive. That in organized criminal networks of this type, lower-level operatives who can be identified are sometimes eliminated by the people running the operation to prevent them from talking. Coffin Daffer discussed a similar theory during a live broadcast in mid-April. Law enforcement has not confirmed this, but it is the kind of detail that explains why, after over 100 days, no one has come forward to claim the $1.2 million reward. Because the person who could connect the dots may no longer be in a position to do so. Now, a different kind of authority spoke this week, not about theories, about facts. May 21, 2026. Retired FBI Special Agent Steve Moore sat down with News Nation's Brian Enton, and he said something about the forensic evidence in this case that I think is one of the most important things said publicly in the last month. The public has been focused on one piece of evidence, one hair. A single strand of hair recovered from inside Nancy Guthrie's home. That hair was tested at a private lab in Florida, first came back inconclusive. No match in the national database. It has been sent to the FBI facility at Quantico, and for weeks the public conversation has centered on that single hair, one hair. That is all we have. Steve Moore said with 22 years as an FBI special agent that framing is almost certainly wrong. His exact words, "Imagine the odds of a person coming into a crime scene, losing only one hair, and you find it. That is not likely. If you find one here, there are probably 10 others." Think about what that means. The FBI laboratory at Quantico is not working with one piece of trace evidence. It is almost certainly working with a full forensic picture that has never been disclosed to the public. Fingerprints, skin cells, microscopic fibers, additional hair strands, materials transferred from the suspect's clothing to NY's furniture. Materials transferred from NY's home to the suspect's clothing that investigators found on evidence recovered miles away. The single hair story is the fraction the public has been allowed to see. Moore says the reality behind closed doors is almost certainly 10 times larger. He also said something about the early crime scene that matters. He criticized the handling of the Tucson scene directly. He said that reported communication breakdowns and departmental confusion indicated a distinct lack of leadership preparation. He was not talking about the detectives on the ground. He was talking about the decisions made above them. And he said something that connects directly to what the FBI director himself has now confirmed publicly, that the early chaos at this scene, the jurisdictional friction, the days lost, the DNA that went to a private lab in Florida instead of Quantico on night 1 created a window that the investigation is still trying to close. Every hour matters in the first 48. The FBI director said they had a plane ready on the runway on night 1. That plane did not take off for days. And Steve Moore is telling you that the forensic consequences of that delay may still be playing out in federal laboratories right now. But here is what gives this case genuine hope. And this is the piece that came in just yesterday, May 22nd, 2026. Today, a man named Robbie Mayer gave an interview that deserves your full attention. Robbie Mayer is not a cable news commentator. He is not an internet investigator. He is a former detective from the Pima County Sheriff's Department, the same department running this investigation, and he has broken one of Tucson's most terrifying criminal cases before. Between 1983 and 1986, a man known as the Primetime Rapist terrorized Tucson. He committed over 30 home invasions. He targeted more than 90 victims. He sexually assaulted women inside homes he invaded. And for years, despite thousands of tips, he was not caught. Robbie Mayer was part of the team that finally cracked it. He knows what it looks like when a case has 4,000 leads and the right name is buried somewhere inside all of them. And this week, Robbie Mayer looked at the Nancy Guthrie case with 50,000 tips and counting and said this: I believe the suspect's name is in those 50,000. Read that again. A former Pima County detective who has been inside investigations exactly like this one, sitting in the same building working with the same team, believes the name of the person who took Nancy Guthrie has already been given to investigators by the public. It is buried. It is sitting somewhere in a database. It may have come in on day 3 or day 40 or day 90. It may have come in from someone who did not even realize what they knew. A neighbor who saw a vehicle, a co-worker who noticed a behavior change, a family member who heard something that did not make sense until later. The Primetime Rapist case broke because someone connected a drug dealer to the suspect, not because of sophisticated forensics, because of a human connection that took time to surface through a mountain of information. Mayer says this case looks the same. The name is there, the investigators have to find it. And he praised the team doing that work. He said the FBI will ultimately solve this case. He said the thoroughness of the investigators working the leads is something he has seen before, and it works. That is not a man speculating on a podcast. That is a man who has cracked a case with the same kind of evidence pile in the same city with the same department. The suspect's name may already be written down in a file at the Pima County Sheriff's Office right now. Now, while all of that was happening, while Coffin Dapper was dropping the wrenching theory, and Moore was revealing the hidden forensic picture, and Mayer was saying the name is already in the hidden system, the man officially running this investigation was giving a very different account of where things stand, and his account directly contradicts the director of the FBI. Sheriff Chris Nano spoke to People magazine this week. He said coordination with the FBI began without delay from the very beginning. He said the aerial search started immediately. He said his team is working through thousands and thousands of videos. He said tips are still coming in on day 102. And then he said something that on its own sounds reassuring. He said, I believe we know why he did this. I believe it was targeted, and I believe we are getting closer. Now hold that statement up against what FBI Director Kash Patel said publicly just weeks earlier. Patel said on the record under his own name on a nationally broadcast that the FBI was kept out for 4 days. He said he had hundreds of agents ready. He said he had a fixed-wing aircraft on the runway the night Nancy disappeared, ready to fly evidence to Quantico immediately. And he said the sheriff's department sent DNA to a private lab in Florida instead. Both of those accounts cannot be fully true. One of the two most senior law enforcement figures associated with this case is not giving the public an accurate picture. And there is a third voice weighing in. It comes from inside Pima County's own government. Dr. Matthew Hines, the vice chair of the Pima County Board of Supervisors, said publicly that Nanos has been holding a personal grudge against the FBI, dating back to a 2015 to 2016 investigation into his own department. That investigation involved the possible misuse of approximately $5,000 in RICO funds. It led to the indictment of Nancy's own chief deputy. Hines said directly, "He is a person who holds a grudge and is still angry at the FBI for appropriately investigating his office. He has held a grudge against the FBI and refused to fully work with them going forward. And I think we see the results of that in this investigation." He was then asked directly whether Nancy's alleged grudge may have jeopardized elements of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. His answer, very possible. And it did not stop there. The Pima County Board of Supervisors used a rarely invoked territorial error law to compel Nanos to give sworn testimony under oath, not just about the Guthrie case, about his own work history. Because a deposition in a separate lawsuit revealed that Nanos said under oath he had never been suspended as a law enforcement officer. Public records from El Paso appear to directly contradict that claim. Records that show he was suspended multiple times and resigned in lie of termination. Perjury allegations against the sitting sheriff running an active federal kidnapping investigation. That is the internal situation inside the institution responsible for finding Nancy Guthrie. And yet at the same time, the FBI laboratory at Quantico is working. The 50,000 tips are being processed. The genetic genealogy team is building family trees from DNA. Former Detective Robbie Mayer says the suspect's name is already in the pile. And Steve Moore says the forensic picture is 10 times larger than what has been made public. The investigation is being run by an institution in crisis, and it is still moving forward. Both of those things are true at the same time. Now let me bring every thread in this video together, because when you lay them side by side, the celebrity voice, the wrenching theory, the hidden forensic reality, and the fresh statement from a detective who has cracked this exact kind of case before, a picture forms. The person who took Nancy Guthrie may never have appeared on that camera. Porch Guy may be the face of this crime without being the mind behind it. A sophisticated criminal network that targets wealthy individuals for cryptocurrency extortion does not send its bosses to the front door. It sends mopes, low-level operators who can be replaced, who can be silenced, who can disappear. Which means the name that matters most in this case may not be attached to the masked figure on that doorbell camera. It may be attached to someone sitting completely out of the frame, someone who has never shown up in any footage, someone whose DNA is not at the scene because they were nowhere near it that night. And the 50,000 tips sitting in that database may include, buried somewhere, the name of exactly that person given by someone who does not know what they know. Someone who saw something once and called it in and assumed it was nothing. Someone whose tip is sitting in a file right now waiting for the right investigator to connect the right dot. Jim Clemente, the retired FBI supervisory special agent and profiler who reviewed the doorbell footage, said the mistakes in this case will directly lead to a capture. Not maybe, directly. He said the suspect's wrist tattoo, briefly visible as he tried to cover that camera lens, is the kind of physical identifier that, when combined with genetic genealogy, results becomes corroborating evidence that holds up in a courtroom. Dr. Ann Burgess, one of the most respected criminal profilers in the country, said the spiderweb has a center. Everything in this investigation connects. The DNA, the footage, the backpack, the holster, the walkie-talkie, the route the vehicle took away from that neighborhood, all of it connects. And the center, the person or network at the origin of all of it, is what Quantico is working toward right now. The former Pima County detective said the name is already in the pile. The former FBI agent said there are 10 times more forensic pieces than the public has seen. The former FBI profiler said the mistakes will directly lead to a capture. And Khloe Kardashian said it is mind-blowing that in 2026 an 84-year-old woman can be taken from her own home in the middle of the night with no arrest made. She is right. It is mind-blowing. And the more people who say it, the more pressure every institution connected to this investigation feels. From the Quantico lab to the Pima County Sheriff's Office to the county supervisors calling for sworn testimony, every voice that keeps NY's name in the public conversation adds weight to a case that the public has not been allowed to forget. And now I want to talk about something that does not get discussed enough in these updates, because the evidence and the timelines and the forensic details are important, but they can sometimes make you forget what is actually at the center of all of it. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She has a pacemaker inside her chest right now. That device is keeping count. Every beat logged, every moment she has been away from her home, her family, her Sunday morning live stream church service, her small group of close friends who noticed on a February morning that she had not arrived and made the call that launched all of this. She has been missing for more than 110 days. Savannah Guthrie posted on Mother's Day. She wrote, "We miss you with every breath. We will never stop looking for you. We will never be at peace until we find you." That is a daughter living in public, going on national television, anchoring the Today Show, and carrying something that no professional composure can fully hide. The weight of a mother who is out there somewhere who fought back on her own front porch. It eliminates repeat offenders. It eliminates anyone with a prior record. The DNA profile belongs to someone living what appears from the outside to be a completely ordinary life. A hair sample recovered from inside NY's home was sent first to a private lab in Florida, then to the FBI lab at Quantico, Virginia. As of May 2026, that evidence is believed to be undergoing genetic genealogy analysis, the same technology that identified the Golden State Killer after more than 40 years. The technology that convicted Rex Herman, the Long Island serial killer. Genetic genealogy works by comparing crime scene DNA against commercial ancestry databases and building a family tree backward until it identifies a living person. It is slow, it is painstaking, but it has never permanently failed when applied to quality biological evidence. Here is what we know for certain. As of today, May 23, 2026, Khloe Kardashian said, "Oof," about the brother-in-law on a podcast reaching 300 million people. Verified, May 13, 2026. Khloe in Wonderland podcast. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer said Porsche Guy is not the key suspect. She called him a mope. She introduced the wrenching theory, an organized crypto extortion network that uses hired operatives to do physical work while sophisticated masterminds operate from a distance. Verified. May 19, 2026, posted on X, retired FBI Special Agent Steve Moore said the single hair story is almost certainly a fraction of the real forensic picture. He said, "If you find one hair, there are probably 10 more." He said the early crime scene handling was chaotic and reflected a lack